Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Down Syndrome Center podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Kishore Balodi, and today we're going to be talking about something that I think we probably all do every day. In fact, in this modern era where we're talking to different devices and telling our Google or our Alexa or our Siri what we wanted to do and telling them where we want to go in our cars and all this stuff. And for many of us, we might take that for granted, the ability that these devices have been created to help us and usually can understand us. But then there's a whole population of people, including those of us who have friends with Down syndrome, where we've recognized, my brother included, where the device has a really hard time understanding what they're trying to say. And so there is a team working on this at the in the School of Speech and Hearing Science at University of Illinois, which I think is really exciting to try to build models, if I'm understanding correctly. We'll find out more as the podcast goes on, to be able to allow these devices to understand different types of articulation and speech differences. So before we get too far into it, I'd love our speakers, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you're doing this work that you're doing today. What draws you to it? So, Laura, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us, and we're so happy to get to share this with our Down syndrome community. I am Dr. Laura Matei. I'm an associate professor in speech and hearing science. Um, let's see, wow, I have been around individuals with disability, including those with Down syndrome, since I was a very young child. I went to an inclusive preschool, so this was just my normal world. And then when I got to graduate school, I loved working with children. I loved development, but I never really considered um, looking at development that was individualized to people with different abilities. That just hadn't really been on my radar. Um, but I met my future PhD advisor, Dr. Deborah Fiddler, and she had asked me, do you have any experience with people with Down syndrome? And so we sort of chatted. My first experience was actually when I was 6, and I only wanted to help babysit a twin infant with Down syndrome. I didn't want to do anything with their sibling. And she was like, okay, you need to come and work with our families. And the first lab activity I watched, I just knew that this was the group for me to help. And I just love working with the families and hearing their experiences and trying to figure out how we can use research to impact better life for them and have more inclusion and more belonging. So that's sort of how I ended up at Illinois. Um, and most of my work actually focuses on little kids, so toddlers and infants. But this project that we're going to share with you today is just so important for all of us. We all want to have this access, and so I was really excited to be part of this team.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And how about you, Alex? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so thank you again for letting us be a part of this. But my name is Alex Barkheimer. I am a second year PhD student in the Department of Speech and Hearing Science under the advisement of Dr. Marie Chanel, who is also a professor here. And kind of similar to Laura, my involvement in the disability community really started the day I was born. My uncle has intellectual disability and has a lot of complex medical conditions and communication needs and support. So I really grew up in the world of disability from really when I was a baby. I really started working with the Down syndrome community in high school and my bachelor's degree. I was volunteering in Columbus, Ohio for a program that's now called Buddy Up for Life, but it was Buddy Up Tennis at the time.
Hmm.
And I was just really integrated with the Down syndrome community, supporting them in playing tennis really was what it started with. But then kind of COVID happened during that time. So it kind of expanded into really just working with a lot of individuals and just becoming friends with people. And that really kind of started my involvement with the Down syndrome community and kind of the work that I'm really interested in now. So, like I said, I'm at the beginning of my PhD really at this point, but my work really focuses on adults and supporting that transition from school to adulthood through, right now I'm looking at goal setting and involvement in goal setting to kind of support self-determination and autonomy and decision making. But yeah, that's really where I am.
Well, that's great. That's great. We had my daughters on the podcast talking about their uncle and how he impacted their life. And I love how your uncle had a very similar impact for you too. Well, this is great. So tell us a little bit more about what is voice-enabled technology and what are
Yeah.
some of the issues that you guys have seen for people with Down syndrome?
Yeah, so as we all know, we use Alexa, we use Siri, the Bluetooth in your car, and we ask it to do things. And when it works, it's great. But when it doesn't work, we all get frustrated. And I'm talking as someone who doesn't have any difficulty articulating words. I might sometimes talk fast or mumble, but overall, right, there's no sort of difficulty with my articulation. But lots of people, for many different reasons, do have difficulty with articulation. And those systems don't do a good job, especially of understanding them. And so our lead investigator, Mark Hasegawa Johnson, has been working on this issue of speech recognition. The fancy word, right, is automatic speech recognition. So if you see that word out there, and he's an engineer and a computer scientist. And what what is what I didn't know till I started working with him is that the database of speech samples for individuals who have this difficulty articulating words really up until 2023 has only been 15 people.
Hmm.
And that is not a large sample, regardless of what we're studying, right? We all know we want to have big, diverse samples. And when you think about speech, especially, you really need a lot of speech samples. And so while Alexa, Google, right, they've gotten a lot better through machine learning, which is a very complex computer thing that I don't even know I can fully explain, as well as AI, right? They've gotten better at understanding speech that doesn't have any articulation issues. But the difficulty it has for those who do have articulation issues is actually still higher than what it was when we started doing this in other speech samples. So he built a team includes us with funding support from Google, Meta, Microsoft. I'm forgetting one, and Apple. Which never really happens that these big companies want to work together. But they realized that to get the amount of samples they needed, they really did have to work together because you need so many samples. And if everybody works on it by themselves, all of these individuals, whether they have Down syndrome or Parkinson's, they're not going to want to do speech samples for 4 different companies. So he sort of got them all together so that we could start working on this together. And so they developed all the software that we use, but we basically have come together to try to make this software better for everyone.
Mhm.
And so while the project does have a focus on specific disabilities, because we know they have these speech articulation issues, it really will help everybody. And so that's sort of how this project came to be.
Awesome. And Alex, did you have something you wanted to add to that as well? It looked like you were about to say something.
No, I think Laura pretty much covered everything that was going on with what we do and why we do it. So,
So tell me then about the speech accessibility project then. What does this project look like
Yeah.
and where are we at in the project now?
Yeah, so I'm going to give the little overview,
Uh-huh.
but I'm going to actually let Alex talk a lot about what people do in this project because I think it's really interesting and it's unique what we're doing. So the goal of the project is really to collect all of these diverse samples, and we're aiming for 500 across, and then so in 5 different groups. So we're talking, 20 some, you know, thousand people, whatever it is. It feels like a lot of people. And then they all have these speech samples. So the amount of samples is just huge. Um, and the goal is that then we actually have a team who, after they record the sample, we actually have people who are our amazing students go through and actually check the machine learning and the AI that is transcribing or copying what you're saying in order to see if it did it right. And if it didn't, they make the change so that the software can learn how to adjust for that different speech sound. Um, so we are we're coming to the end, which is kind of exciting.
Hmm.
They did roll out sort of the first mini database. I believe it was Google. I would have to double check that, but I think it was Google did get to actually pull some of the new data into their system. And so the nice thing that we do also, because people are always a little worried, right, about your sample and what's happening, is that the data actually doesn't belong to any specific company. It's housed here at Illinois.
Hmm.
And so we have your data in a secure place, we're processing it in a secure place. And then the companies who funded the project, they get the first chance to use the data, but we transfer that de identified data with how it processed everything to them. So it's kind of we're this sort of middleman in the project. Additionally, it's set up that other research teams or even small tech companies can request to access the data. So again, it's a way that we're gaining all of this information from everyone about speech, but we're not going to tax them the way that they might have been taxed because we'll have this really rich database. Um, so that's sort of the technical backside, why we want to do it. And as you know, Mark always says, is like we just really want to make technology accessible for everyone. And for people with disabilities, technology is such a gateway to doing everything they should be able to do. It just gives so much more access. So that's really the goal of our team here.
Great. And Alex, you were going to add to that, I know.
Yeah. So, like Laura said, I think the really big part about this and really what drives the work that we do is that it's really making things more accessible to the Down syndrome community and then the disability community like as a whole. I am a mentor on the project, so part of my job is not just recruitment, but supporting people when they start the project, to walk them through everything and make sure everything's working and that they understand the project. But during that time, I meet with every family really at that point and talk with them about Alexa and Siri and how it doesn't work for them, or people getting frustrated because I'm trying to text my friends or use the remote control to turn up the volume or something like that, and it's not working.
Mhm.
So that really feeds in and kind of like, I really think fuels this project for what it is. But in terms of kind of what participants do, when they sign up, like I said, I set up a meeting with them or one of our other graduate students that are on the project. And we spend about an hour during a time that works best for them on Zoom, really just kind of talking through the project. We sign consent forms, go over all of the information, and then we practice using the project together. So the recordings are all done online on a website. You can do them at your own pace whenever you want, other than that initial meeting where we're like kind of practicing together. So there are up to 600 recordings that individuals do if they do the entire project, which we understand is a lot. Again, we have to get a lot of data from a lot of different people to really help these devices.
Mhm.
Um, But we try to be as flexible as possible with this process. So, for example, people get up to 3 months to do all of their recordings. Most people don't take that long. Some people take longer. It's really up to them and kind of how that process goes. But we also worked really hard on our team to adapt the prompts that people are saying or recording themselves saying. So, for a lot of us and the Down syndrome community, a lot of the people that are coming in as participants are younger adults, like 20s and 30s. So when this project first started, it started with Parkinson's disease, which was older individuals typically. So we catered the prompts, for example, to be things that somebody with Down syndrome might be saying. So for example, instead of saying like, play music by Bon Jovi or something like that, it might say like play music by Taylor Swift. And that's something that they're recording because it's more relevant to them. And we also made the prompts more accessible in general based on like length of like the amount of words that you're saying in an individual prompt. And that really kind of supports really kind of across the board individuals with varying support needs, and communication styles kind of really supporting how they kind of navigate the project. And so it's really nice in that sort of way. And we really try to be one moment.
Everything okay?
I don't know how to turn that off.
We're not hearing anything in case.
We're not.
It was a call, but I don't have my team. I logged out of my Teams. Okay, anyways.
I will delete that. Just give me a little pause
So
here.
yeah, we really try to be supportive
Wait, stop,
of.
stop, stop,
Oh, wait,
stop.
hold on.
Yeah. So just give me a
Oh, I
pause.
can't hear you
and
guys
then
anymore.
Oh, uh-oh.
Can you hear me still?
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Check.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can
Oh.
hear you.
Okay,
Can you
I
hear
can
us?
hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know
Okay.
what happened.
It's okay. So if you remember where you were, just pause here. There will be a nice long line, and then just come back in as if nothing ever happened in between.
Okay. Okay, so we really try to be supportive of adults in navigating this process with a variety of support needs, and that also involves having a helper or a caregiver support them if they need it. So some individuals that we have do the project on their own. I set up a meeting and we're just talking to each other about kind of the whole entire process. Other people have a caregiver or another support person with them. And again, like I said earlier, we try to make it flexible in that that support person can help them in any way that the participant or the friend with Down syndrome really needs. So if that means helping them by saying a prompt and having them repeat you, if that means they're reading it, but the helper is really just pressing the buttons because that's easier to navigate, it's really kind of up to them and what they need. So we really tried to make it, we worked really hard at the front end to really make it as inclusive as possible so that we could have individuals with a variety of support needs and communication really be a part of the study too. So
That's fantastic. Yeah, because I know that can be a really frustrating thing when trying to teach a language model, and maybe the person with Down syndrome, maybe they're not able to read the word that's on the screen or read it fast enough or whatever is needed. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I love about this project is even though we put all this thought into the prompts, it's a completely what's the word I want to use? Kind of community process. So we did focus groups, we tested it with our with people close to us with Down syndrome that we knew. Every time we sort of meet with families or individuals with Down syndrome and they say like, hey, like this didn't work very well, or have you thought about incorporating something? We always go back to the tech team and say like, can we try to do this? And so I really like that even though it sort of feels like a very, super science-y project, it does have this community piece where, we've added special ways that they can hear the prompt actually from the speaker, that they sort of have buttons that are, more guiding. They get more positive feedback throughout. And so I really enjoyed seeing how we can work as a community on this project and seeing how every group and every individual always has some new idea that makes the whole system better. And so
Yeah,
that's been actually really enjoyable.
that's great. Now, is this project still something that is currently enrolling? Are you still looking for more voices? And if so, how do people find out more about the project and get themselves or their loved ones signed up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we are still recruiting. Um, we can send the link to you to
Mhm.
put in the little
Perfect.
show
Doing it.
notes.
Yeah.
It is just speech accessibility at Illinois, and we're recruiting now and probably through the summer. And I can let Alex sort of talk a little bit more about that. But if you are a friend with Down syndrome, you will immediately get when you register sent to our team, probably straight to Alex. So you'll have a friendly voice and face
Mhm.
when you get there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And
Um,
yeah, I was going to say anything that somebody would need to know in terms of like time commitment. You said you give them about a 3 month period in order to do these recordings. And if they need help or guidance along the way, that would be someone on your team that would be able to help with that.
Yep, exactly. So after that initial meeting, it's kind of up to the participant or the friend with Down syndrome how they want to navigate it. So we have members of our team, graduate students, and me that kind of support that process. So if people want to set up like meetings like this regularly on Zoom for like 30 minutes where we do recordings together and get like real-time feedback, they can do that. We have some individuals that do that, and it really is mostly it starts with just talking to each other and really just kind of spending time together, and then we do a little bit of recording too at the same time, but it's something that's really fun to do. Other people do it on their own really completely from there on out, and we just kind of follow along the way and just make sure things are sounding okay and looking okay, and then we reach out as needed. But in all, the process we estimate it takes like 5 hours to do the whole thing. For a lot of our participants, it's taking a little bit less time than that. I went and looked at it, and it's closer to like 3.5, 4 hours to do all of the recordings that you do. But like I said, you don't have to do it all at once. It's very much at your own pace, and that's why we give you so much time to do all of it. So you could do recordings for 2 minutes and then decide that you're done. You can spend a whole hour doing them, and it's really up to you. It's kind of how they want to navigate it the best that they want. So yeah.
Yeah. And the system is designed that you can go in and out. So you could do one prompt a day.
Hmm.
But it also will tell you when you've reached an end of a block.
Hmm.
So that if you were maybe doing a lot at once, then you kind of know like, oh, I'm going to kind of switch the types of things I'm going to be saying. Maybe I want to take a break or I want to do something else. So we kind of tried to give a lot of options to make it um, feel more flexible for people.
That's
And
great. Yeah.
our young adults with Down syndrome are busy. So
Yes.
They're so
that was a
busy.
big thing on our end. And when we first sort of started, we had sort of warned the bigger team, like, hey, these are young adults, they're gonna be busy.
Yeah.
Because our adults with Parkinson's, a lot of them are retired.
Mm.
And so they just like sit down, they have something to do all day, whereas our young adults are very active in their lives. So it's been a good kind of way to balance it for them.
That's great. Yeah, super exciting stuff. I mean, as we all know, for folks who have disabilities, technology can be such a tremendous benefit when it's geared towards their needs. And I think the challenge that we run into is as this world becomes more and more technologically heavy, if we leave behind those abilities to allow someone who maybe has a speech articulation difficulty or something like that, if we're leaving them behind, then they're really, falling behind when they don't have to be. And I love the fact that this project is taking that into account. And what a beautiful thing this is going to be in terms of increasing independence for people with Down syndrome, and allowing them to participate in daily things that everybody else is
Yeah.
doing.
Mhm.
Anything that you guys want to make sure before we close this podcast, anything you want to make sure we address that we didn't address, or any summary you'd like to make of anything that we talked about today?
That's a great question.
Mhm.
Um, I will say, as one of the sort of PIs on this project, I have so enjoyed watching our mentors build these relationships with our friends with Down syndrome. And I think that's the other sort of fun thing that's coming out of this project is that they get on and they just like are talking about whatever they're doing. And so it's a nice way to sort of just expand everyone's contacts, right, with each other. And know, I think that there are people in a different state, right, that are interested in your life and want to make technology fun for you. And the stories the family share of us of, things Alexa wouldn't do for them or
Yes.
Siri is always
Yeah.
like my favorite things to hear because it's just like, yes, this is why this
Mhm.
project's so important. So we're just so appreciative to everyone's time that they're doing with us.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the podcast today, and really look forward to seeing the fruits of this work come into play here soon enough. And to our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. We will definitely have in the show notes here any of the links that may be there if you're interested in having yourself or your loved one who has Down syndrome uh, join this project. That would be fantastic, I'm sure. If there are other topics that you would like us to cover on this podcast, please send me an email to downsyndromecenter@chp.edu. And if you'd like to donate to what we do at this center, including this podcast, please go to givetochildrens.org/Down Syndrome Center. But until next time, bye bye.